It's exactly 32 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to the program. Of course, you're watching the big story right here on KTN News on a day that we're discussing the shocking, inhumane and extreme racist action by Chinese workers, of course, at the SGR, meeting it on Kenyan workers. On the line now is Moses Kuria, the Deputy Chair of the National Assembly Committee on Transport, and also the Member of Parliament for Gatundu South. I understand he is set to meet officials from the Transport Ministry tomorrow over the SGR issue. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the program. You've seen the mistreatment of Kenyan workers there by their counterparts from China, of course. Now, is it something that has raised the attention of your committee, and perhaps what are you planning to do about it?
Well, of course, this is an issue that is of concern to us as a committee because we have the duty to oversight this particular institution. We have intimated to the committee the need to get independent, verifiable information about the issue of the workers at the SGR. And we're going to impress upon the Kenya Railways management to sort of engage an independent HR consultant who is able to verify the truth about some of these claims that we are getting.
Now, Honorable Kuria, latest report apparently indicate that the staff there are already being rounded up. They're being denied their mobile phones. Apparently, the Chinese are saying they're using the mobile phone to take some of the pictures there. Apparently, there's some Kenyans who are undergoing some punitive, punishment or, action from their Chinese masters. Don't you think this is something that deserves some sort of an urgency from your part?
No, it does, and that's why, in fact, even in the absence of, Parliament is on recess, even in the absence of a full committee, we're going to engage management tomorrow, a subset of our committee, and that shows how exactly we are taking this matter as Parliament.
And I'm sure, I understand you've used this locomotive on your way to Mombasa together with the President some time back, and have you, as a transport committee member, have you looked perhaps at the programming of these locomotives? Because almost everything is in Chinese, the computers, the gadgets in there. Have you questioned that?
Well, we will not question about whether it is Chinese or not. We will question if it is working or not working, whether it is Spanish or Chinese. I mean, it will be too much of interference from us to start saying where is this part coming from, because we may be anything, but we are not engineers. So I think that we need to, as a country, we need to focus on results and not on where something is coming from. We need to focus on results and on value for money. And, we've seen also reports in the media about the amount of payment that is going into the operator. And from our high-level analysis and investigation, it is very apparent that that there's a lot of mixing up of issues. And we'll be making a statement once we engage the relevant parties.
So as the Transport Committee, are you questioning some of the figures that we're getting? Apparently, taxpayers have to part away with about, is it 30 million every day, $1 billion every month? And I understand the Deputy President is already on record saying that SGR cannot be operated by, like a matatu. But are you questioning some of these figures as a Transport Committee independently?
Oh, first of all, that is not something that I've questioned before. And what we find interesting and intriguing is that the argument is about right now how much is being paid to the operator. But the question is not being asked if Kenya Railways was running this service itself internally, how much would it cost? So that we are able to compare like for like. And I think, again, from the information that we see from the management and from the ministry, is that when this contract was negotiated, the document that was signed, that is operating now, was itemized to the minute detail. So I actually asked the media whether they have information about this itemization, so that if they want to question a particular item line, then we can focus on that particular item line. But unless we are convinced that what is being paid now is much more than what would have been paid or what would have been spent when this was being run internally, then that becomes an issue. And personally, from a personal point of view, not for the committee, I'm a firm believer in outsourcing.
Away from the economics bit of it, Honorable Kuria, let's talk about the racism allegations that we've highlighted widely in this program. How soon should we expect action from the government?
Well, as a committee, we are going to assemble some few members. We're going to try and have a meeting tomorrow, and we are going to issue a statement immediately about our findings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yusuf.
Thank you very much. That is Honorable Moses Kuria, the Deputy Chair of the National Assembly Committee on Transport. Now in studio, I have John Chumo and Reinhard Bonke. John Chumo is the Secretary General, Kenya Railway Workers Union. Reinhard Bonke is a Programs Officer with Friends for Nairobi National Park. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Now, John, let me begin with you. First, your reaction with this shocking report coming out of SGR. Apparently, Chinese workers are meting out, all kinds of, inhumane treatment on their counterparts from Kenya. Your reactions on that?
Good evening, viewers. My name is John Chumo. I'm the Secretary General of Railway and the Allied Workers Union. I have heard the issues which have been raised, and more so as regards to the terms and conditions of service in SGR. So far, the allegations which I've made have not come to our notice. Had it come to our notice, I think we would have addressed most of the issues. As regards the discrimination, it is there. I happened one day, I was going to meet the human resource manager, and I realized the African or the Kenyan employees are not allowed to go to the cafeteria. It is exclusively for Chinese. And the Chinese who go there, they don't pay. They are given free food, and also there's an accommodation around the headquarters. The Africans or the Kenyans are left alone, and they fend for themselves. The salaries these people are being paid is a meager minimum of the minimum wage requirement. So they are not paid in sufficient money.
So what are you planning to do about this? Of course, we've highlighted the injustices and everything there.
Yes.
But what are you planning to do? Have you engaged Kenya Railways? Have you talked to the Labour Ministry? Have you engaged the government or even the Parliamentary Transport Committee? What are you doing about it?
Yeah, in fact, what I'm planning to do, or what this morning, I called the human resource manager, and he denied all the allegations. I told him, have you seen the Sunday Standard? He said, yes, I have gone through, but the most of allegations are not true. But you see,
of course, they will deny, and that is why people do investigation. And at the moment, there are staffs of the SGR who are being rounded up. They're trying to figure out what these individuals who will be speaking to the various media outlets. I mean, so many people might be fired before you take proper action.
Sure. If that has not come to my attention, and I'm hearing it for the first time from the two gentlemen who had just talked earlier before me, if that thing had come to our notice, I'm sure we'll have ably handled it. There is no way you can fire an employee without initiating the disciplinary procedure.
Apparently, there are those who have already been fired. Apparently, the locomotive drivers, about 3 or 4 of them have been fired. But let me bring Reinhard into this conversation. Reinhard is a programs officer with the Friends for Nairobi National Park. Now, Bonke, of course, there have been fears by conservationists that SGR is going to destroy the ecology of the Nairobi National Park. And we're seeing some development out of SAV already. What do you have to say about this?
Well, unfortunately, national parks they have become attraction to this development activities that are being carried out by the government. Now, everything with the SGR, now from the environmental perspective, has been illegal from the beginning, and they have not actually followed the procedures that are laid out by MCA. Number one, there was no proper stakeholder engagement. There was no proper public consultation in the whole process, and there was no EIA license that was carried out. So in the rest, this issue with the media and with the relevant government agencies, they started doing everything in a reverse manner. The The EIA that I remember was carried out was done when the first part of SGR was done, and SGR Phase 2 had already started going on inside the Nairobi National Park. That happened illegally, and again, the campaign, Friends of Nairobi National Park is involved in the 7 Nairobi National Park campaign, and this just to make it clear that the campaign is not against the SGR. It's shocking what you have seen right now with the human rights issues that are coming up and all these illegalities. But again, we support any move by the government, to develop the country, but not at the expense of environmental sustainability.
Yes. Now, Bonke, maybe Kenyans might question what happened to the census. I know you're not the right person to answer this, but I'm sure it's something that interests you, because earlier we've been told that these trains are going to have sensors, they're not going to hit all these wild animals. But at the moment, 2 lions and 3 buffaloes, 5 buffaloes have already been killed at Tsavo alone.
Yeah, you can see those are some of the effects that we raised before, and unfortunately the public did not see them forthcoming. Right now in Nairobi National Park, there are about 3 roads that have been proposed to go through the park, just the little Nairobi National Park. And the question that the public was asking us is that why is that the railway went through Tsavo National Park and there's no impact by that time? So Nairobi National Park do not have the capacity to withstand that type of development. And again, if you look at the Tsavo National Park, you're already seeing the impacts, the 2 lions being knocked off the road, and I think some buffalo were knocked some few days ago. And again, with the park, with the concessions, they do the concessions illegally. We've had cases of blasting carried out at night. The concession goes beyond 11 p.m. at night. And you all know the environmental impacts of all that. And right now we have, in Nairobi National Park, between March this year to around June, we've lost like 6 lions. And due to this blast, you all know the animals will escape the park, and they go to the community, which who will retaliate back. Again, now all this, we've started seeing the environmental impacts of the SGR on the park before the construction is completely done inside Nairobi National Park. Now, as you're speaking, the campaign is trying to advocate for the roads that have been proposed to go through Nairobi National Park to go actually away from the park. Original plan of the railway, of the SGR issue, was to develop the Konza city, and we just don't sort of complain without alternative. We've given alternative. Initially in 2016, April 2016, we got a letter from Atanas Maina, that's the MD Kenya Railways Corporation, that we were to be involved when the routing decision was being made, but that did not happen. In September, we were called by the Minister of Environment only to be used as rubber stamping purposes, to be told that the route has already been decided. All this thing happened against what was supposed to happen before, because we all know, the Kenyans know, the SGR issue was to develop the Konza city. Why don't we develop city? Why do we want to put pressure on these national parks that we have? Leave alone the Nairobi National Park. We have Nakuru National Park. We have Gololua Forest, which the railway is going to pass through. Well
said, Morgan. Now let me engage Chumo once more. And apparently, let's talk about the human resource bit of SGR. If you look at the number of the trained locomotive drivers, of course, these are Kenyans. They're about 40. And if you compare them with those from China, there are 50 Chinese drivers against just 40 locals. So the question is this. There's so many locomotive drivers that we've talked to are saying these Chinese are basically doing the job that they can easily do. So where will this leave perhaps the vetting process the government has been talking about? Because basically these individuals from China are basically doing what Kenyans can easily do.
Yeah, I'm aware about the Chinese locomotive drivers and the Kenyan locomotive driver. What Chinese have done, they have put these Africans on a probation period. And they are given a 6-month probation period. And they cannot be confirmed until they are certified by the Chinese. The only worry is that after 6 months, it's the same Chinese who are going to test them and to pass them, or otherwise. If one fails, then that is when it's terminated, and it has been happening. The problem with our Kenyans is when they are terminated, they don't come to union to complain. And when we approach them to give us a statement or evidence on how we can take up the case with the relevant authorities, they are always shy. And the fear is that they are going to, others who are supposed to be the witnesses, they fear losing employment. And for your information, most of these locomotive drivers and most of the employees in SGR are employees who are 35 years and below, and most of them are the first timers. So when they hear that when they want the union to take the case to court, they fear because they are not ready to go and give evidence. But what we are doing as union, whether these people are going to give us evidence or not, we shall still pursue the case as per law. Because you see, before you cannot give somebody a probation period of 6 months and then terminate him without giving good reason, because you cannot train people and they all fail. They all passed through Railway Training Institute. It is a known institute. It's not just in a school, just like that. And they are tested and they are passed. That is why they are employable by the company. What the Chinese are doing, they want to buy time so as they continue employing the Chinese, because there was a time I asked them, why do you think it's only Africans who can fail the test? They say they have given a pass mark of 70% for any technical course or any other course which the employees take up as practicals. But then I was wondering, is it only Chinese who can pass above 70% and the Kenyans are failing it? I raised an issue. I wrote a letter to HR.
Those are some of the issues we hope the Transport Committee, by extension, of course, the government is going to investigate and come to the end of it. And Reinhard, let me give you the last word here. And apparently you've said the EIA was done to validate what was already planned by the government, and of course those who've been implementing the SGR. Now that the project is here to stay, perhaps what do you think can be the solution?
The solution has always remained to follow the rule of law. We have the Environmental Management and Coordination Act that was first drafted in the year 1999 and was redone, I think, about a year or 2 or 3 ago. And this is what we all need. And when you have a development, we need to engage all the stakeholders that are likely to be involved, because we don't need a development whereby we threaten the biodiversity of the nation. So we need a sustainable type of development. We've been called before that we're busy bodies, but with me I have the National Wildlife Strategy that was launched by the President himself. And I know for sure that they mean well for conservation, but perhaps there's some gap on involving the right stakeholders and getting the right information past the public. So yes, the SGR has gone through the park. It's sort of like somehow a lost case, but you can still save Nairobi National Park from the roads that have been suggested to go through the park. And again, to protect, we have areas of ecological importance. These are supposed to be protected areas that no development should occur, should be allowed to occur in such ecosystems. We've seen the environmental degradation that we've had, the calamities, and just within Nairobi, we have areas that were developed in a riverine system or waterways, and when it floods, we have seen the effects of all that. So yes, the SGR has gone through the park. It's sort of like a lost scale, but we can still salvage what is left right now by the government calling the stakeholders on board. And then we discuss on proper routing for all these development purposes. So we need a sustainable type of development.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Reinhard Bonke, for your input. He is the programs officer from Friends for Nairobi National Park. John Chumo is the Secretary General, Kenya Railways Workers Union. Earlier spoke by way of phone to Honorable Moses Kuria, the Deputy Chair of the National Assembly Committee on Transport. Of course, you'll be watching The Big Story. Many thanks for watching. My name is Joseph Ibrahim. And up next is KTN Prime. Bye-bye for now.